What's up, Army? Welcome back to Redemption 46 Studios. I'm Nick.
I'm Curtis.
And I'm Zach.
And the vibes. Y'all saw the picture. Y'all saw the thumbnail. Y'all know why y'all here.
Why are they here?
Agust D, SDL. No long talk. Let's jump into this.
What does SDL stand for?
A banger, clearly.
Yeah.
Woo! Somebody does love.
His vocals.
His vocals in the background.
Really? His storytelling is incredible.
Somebody does love. Somebody does love. I'm thinking about you. You hear that?
Yeah.
So
Harmonizing with
I thought I heard Jim in something.
Oh my gosh. Those background vocals too.
SDL. What is that shorty that normally always be?
You got me.
I want the person singing to draw a little bit more.
A little sizzle right there too.
I want them to draw a little bit more.
Spring day.
Somebody does love. You can tell us when you're done. Because at first I thought it was German, but I think it's a shorty, Adora or whatever her name is. Oh, I was right? I was right. Thinking about you.
Sizzle.
How much time was that? I wanted her to draw a little bit more, man. All this right here. Somebody knows. I want to be like, I think about you. Shit. That's a. Yep. Nah, let me see if I can go back. That's a Leah falsetto. Right here, that.
That's ridiculous. He snapped.
Hey, those is the Malia falsetto type jumps. Nah, this was phenomenal. It was. Is her name Adora? Yeah, as soon as I heard that, because at first it was so breathy and kind of silent. I'm just like, I know it's not Jimin or nobody else that have one here, but I know she does a majority of like some of the background vocals for BTS and everything.
And who was that?
I think her name is Adora.
Okay.
Because we talked about her before, and I think she should have like a solo career. Should be starting some stuff now, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all can tell me, Redeemers.
Shout out to her, man. She snapped too.
Yeah, let me see if I can look it up. This feels so good. This feels like those 90s, early 2000s songs where rappers kind of used to be on with, no disrespect, but sometimes they be on a track with like a random chick that like people wouldn't kind of know. But it'd be so hot, you'd be like, who is Shorty? And they was like, she just was in the booth, or she just was there, and we laid the vocals out. But she's not like a popping person, because that would happen a lot.
She is now, damn.
You would think so.
Hopefully.
But you feeling it?
She's the only known female producer at Big Hit Entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Yeah, I know she's popping.
That's incredible.
She made her solo career in 2021.
Yep.
Debut in 2021.
Yeah, good catch. But yeah, nah, this was different, man. I want to save some of this for the album review. This might be one of the best solo albums out of BTS ever, so far, and I know that's very high praise. If you initially cut the album on, you might think that you just about to get like a lot of like just drill type music, and the switch up has been crazy. The switch up is crazy, and the switch up is still changing, because this does not sound like amygdala. This sounds different. So I can only imagine kind of. Well, we know the track after this is like The People Part 2, and that's already a banger and a whole different sound as well. This album is crazy, man. I'm sorry, Army. Like, I'm not trying to be a person that's like caught in a moment, and I hate just trying to like declare shit being like better than other things, but like this feel like a masterpiece so far. Hold on, let me pull out D-Day and shit. Cause yeah, we on track 5, and technically so far we've heard 6 out of the 10. Everything's been a banger. Not even just kind of like, how like people like, oh, the whole album no skips, but it'd be like 2 songs on there that you kind of like, if you miss it, it ain't the end of the world almost and shit. Because people say that and shit, and sometimes albums don't be like no skips. They be like 2 tracks be like not a hard listen, if that makes sense. But nah, this has been all bangers, all different songs. Yeah, I'm stuck, man. This is good, man. Y'all can talk. I feel like I've been talking too much, man. This is good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I love the switch up. I laughed in the beginning because that shit was so fire. Like, I didn't expect that. The way they started, that shit was super fire. Everything about this production was fire. Rap line, the way he killed that rap line, that rap verse, whatever you want to call it, I don't care. He just killed it. Vocally, he killed it.
Whole first 5 songs is damn lit.
Man, this is like one of those like vibing songs. Like, you can really vibe to this.
But that's the thing, though, and obviously, and Kerm, let you jump in here. BTS has mastered music. Like, it just is what it is. Like, to me, they've mastered like every genre and everything like that. So at this point, with most of the solo work, really, more so, I guess, in my opinion, is looking at what stories are going to be told collectively, ironically, but from different members. Like, what do you want this album to be about? Oh, I want the album to be about my 20s. Oh, okay, cool. What do you want your album to be about? You know what? I'm going to talk about, the depression I felt like during COVID. You're like, oh, okay, cool. What do you want your album to be about? Just the duality I face with, the person I was before I got into music and the person I am now. Which is kind of what this album feels like so far.
Even with Hope, too, respectively.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, my fault. In the Pandora's box and everything, too.
Exploring, literally going through that darkness to find hope at the end and everything. Like, these are just, like, incredibly complex themes and everything that they're tackling, and very personal in the same regard as well. And they're just doing such an incredible job. Like, it really can't be, emphasized enough.
Yeah. And it's just, in doing so, it's just like, what route do y'all go about telling us these stories with your music? Like, what's the sound going to be like? What's the tempo of the album going to be about? How long is the project, et cetera, et cetera? And they all just been knocking it out the park, and it feels like everything just keeps ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up. Jimin literally just smacked us on the face, ironically. You know what I mean? With everything he had going on with this album. And Suge, like so crazy. Far, right, this is like crazy. Suge, so far, is like, he's putting on a master class from production standpoint, from a contextual standpoint, from MVs, from dance practices. Like, like, what the fuck didn't he do and shit? Like, this is like, Suge, all-rounder.
Always.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I agree to always, but it's just like, this feels different, man. Like, this... It's a little bit different. Like, he's moving different. You could feel like a different energy. He's him. I'm cool, man. I'm gonna shut the fuck up. Kurt, kill this shit how you normally do. I'm good, man.
No, I love this. I mean, enough can't be said about the background vocals from Adora and everything like that. But also, I mean, Youngi's vocals as well. And then honestly, the way they harmonize together, like he feels so like. And I know we talked about this briefly on People Part 2 and everything. And granted, I'm going to recontextualize all that, track list wise and kind of sift through it that way when we get there. But just what he's been able to contribute vocally. I mean, I remember hearing "Girl of My Dreams" with him and Juice WRLD and everything, and that was one of the first songs I heard where I was like, he really has an incredible voice. Like if he ever chooses to kind of, further explore this and everything. And I know that he was, in such a dark place with everything that was going on. And granted, I don't even know 100% of that context to, even imagine. But basically to say that, him coming from that dark place and still having this like beautiful voice in his own right and how hard he's worked at it. And like, you just feel so proud in the sense that he seems so much more happy now. Having kind of gone through everything that he has to get to this place. And that's always going to be something that's going to hit for me regardless. But the way you talk about, your vocals contributing to feeling or doubling down the emotion, it's almost doing double the work of that even, where it's like it's doubling down on emotion, but you also know the journey behind it to where like you feel it that much more. Or at least, a lot of the journey behind it. But all that to say, it's like, his vocals are just really incredible here. And I thought, the harmonization between, him and Adora in those moments were really great too. But I also love that, because, it's the fact that the idea of the song is somebody do love and everything like that. And I like the way he kind of worded that because it wasn't just someone loves or something like that. It was like someone do love or anything. And I like the tense of that too, because it's present tense as far as like not getting too deep into it or anything, and I'll save a lot of this for the album review, but it's like, when we had heard like parts of The Last and everything where he basically talked about like, I'm alive because I can't die sort of thing, and basically going from a journey of that to then talking about like you do love yourself kind of and everything, and not just, in the context of like, the idols and BTS and, those things, but like, because he seems to separate Suge in a lot of regards to where it's like, Youngi and Agust D. So I the way he's contextualizing that, it just, all that to say it hits a little bit more talking about it that way. I really like how he kind of talks about, the things that people will seemingly go through or the feelings that we'll have in talking about love, and then uses the end of that first verse to basically say, so basically, is that something, when we think of those things within ourselves, is that an act of love, even if it's born out of reminiscing or talking about, any kind of memories or anything like that? So I thought all that was really interesting too, because essentially you're talking about, being able to reminisce on something is like, if you're pulling from any bit of that memory, and especially, and granted, I haven't like heard the track or anything, but I know kind of the themes of what's talked about, at least as far as, amygdala. So if you're talking about some of the stuff that was like really deep fear that you were going through previously, then you come on the other side of that and basically talk about, some of the more positive kind of things. That switch is really interesting to me too, because I know I know how he had referred to the whole lotus flower thing previously, and I believe that was in D-Day, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, if amygdala is a little bit of that mud, of kind of sifting through that mud, like that dark time, if you will, then this would be kind of the song that references a little bit more of the blooming of that lotus flower, so to speak, at least to kind of what I'm thinking about now. And granted, more of that will be clear kind of in the album review, I would say, but just to briefly touch on, like, you feel that kind of change, that transition between the two. And I just think that is really hitting a beautiful place for sure. And he really touches on a lot, but I like, and this is what I like about Strange Part 2 as well, or Strange as well with him and RM, if I'm not mistaken, was they lay out the kind of I want to say juxtaposition, I suppose, between two things, and kind of talks about the middle ground of kind of how to assess it, if it's this or if it's that sort of thing. And I think he does a really great job of doing that and kind of writing in that moral, like, ambiguity kind of, gray space, as far as like, is this a good thing, is this a bad thing, and just kind of the way his mind seems to navigate with those things. Even when talking about something like love and reminiscing, it's like, going through that winter, am I appreciating that spring day because I went through the winter, or am I appreciating that spring day because it's bright and it's happy? Like, and everything, like, am I appreciating happiness because it's happy, or is it because I felt like so much before? And that's not the control, bro. Yeah, very interesting metaphor.
That's where I'm at with it, because a lot of the lyrics are hitting on, how can I like phrase this kind of in one sentence. Do you like the nostalgicness of love, or are you in love? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Where it's kind of one of those things where is you hit it good and shit. It's like, are you appreciating something because you went through that, or just because of that?
And that's another thing I like about the somebody do love, because it's not even like it's leaving it ambiguous in the sense of like, because if you're having to love yourself or a shade of yourself, or you're separating that entity as like a separate side of yourself. And interesting with the duality of kind of Agust D and everything. But it's also interesting because, again, this isn't just Suge or Min Yoongi specifically talking about these lyrics. This is from Agust D's perspective. So it's like I'm kind of imagining someone who was full of so much hate and inner turmoil and just, grievances, having to kind of, get to that place of questioning. It's like, is there that bright light at the end of the tunnel even for me? Am I redeemable within that regard? It really is ironic. But basically, it's like, am I redeemable? And is there something I can kind of pull from on the other side of this? And it's just really interesting the perspective in which he's kind of writing from with it. But I like that you brought that up too, as far as like, am I reminiscing on love, like, or is it something like I'm looking forward to? And I think he touched on that beautifully as well, where it's like, am I reflecting back on a memory of this that I either buried or changed, perhaps? If you kind of look at it that way, or if it's like, am I looking at the potential of that future of love or anything like that?
Because that's real life shit.
No, it is.
Like, do people love the concept of love, or do you love in general?
Like, it's like, do you love this person, or do you love feeling loved by this person, or kind of like, and it's a lot of interesting things to kind of weigh in. But I like in the aspect that it doesn't feel just purely like in a romantic sense. It really feels like a self-love.
No, it could be self-love or platonic, or
absolutely
things of that nature.
And that's what I like about it too, because even he said in the MV shoot sketch thing, if you interpret it this way, then and I always love when artists are able to kind of do that.
Shit was
like,
meant.
If you leave it open and you were able to take something from it and derive from it, then then that suits the purpose that you intended it to, or that you were able to take away from it. And I felt like this track was great in that aspect as well. And I'm interested to kind of put this specific piece of the puzzle in line with kind of some of the track lists, and then conceptualize like a little bit more of how that piece or this piece ties into everything within the album. But knowing it certainly came after Amygdala is something that's very interesting as well, and a big turning point within the album. Is this track 4 or 5?
This is track 5, and like I said,
midpoint of the album.
Midpoint of the album, and we heard 6.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and it's crazy because personally the tone shift happened at 3. Yeah. As far as like kind of the first 3 elements being kind of more drill, and then it kind of turning into more of like the pop kind of music as far as like here. And then we heard people too, so Polar Night should be very interesting just to kind of see what approach they go with after that. Polar Night also sounds decent. Sounds like a drink.
Also, you talk about polar opposites and things like that, so I'm interested how they're going to balance that too.
Yeah, but I am good. I'm ready to jump into the next one to kind of see what's going on. Anything else you want to jumped out at you, or are you cool?
No, I also like that he mentioned like kind of laughing silently and everything like that, but it's interesting too, because I'm also thinking about like how he had to kind of bottle in a lot of like what he was going through. He wasn't able to really tell anyone and everything like that. And granted, I'm sure stuff like that is much more touched on in Amygdala. But just in reference to this, it's like if you're able to kind of smile silently, I think that's an interesting kind of other side of the spectrum of kind of having to hide pain, where it's like I'm smiling silently, but then having to, so even just kind of looking at the hiding or kind of wearing that thick skin or that other, defense mechanism, or however you want to kind of interpret that.
Still sounds like still compartmentalizing feelings.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like basically to say if you're compartmentalizing something that's positive as opposed to negative, I just think that in and of itself, in respect of what we've seen with Agust D, is something that's really, hopeful as well.
And jump in the comments, tell us how y'all felt about this. So I said, I'm probably talking, wow, but this album has been crazy so far, man. It's like crazy, you said.
Crazy.
It was like, chill. It was like, watch your fucking mouth, Nick. But yeah, we love y'all. I'll let y'all. Peace.